Today in Draw My Life, the lost episode of The Amazing World of Gumball. The Amazing World of Gumball is another show that has a lost episode. These episodes are known for never being aired since they may contain sinister and weird themes that don't match up to the original show. It isn't exactly known why these episodes exist, nor why the creators produced them. But its final goal is to never be broadcasted, because they can be uncomfortable for the public. Still, there are people that, one way or another, manage to watch these episodes. This is a case of The Amazing World of Gumball. One night, Louis was home alone. It was almost midnight and he wasn't sleepy, so he decided to turn on the TV and see what was on it. Without noticing, he lost track of time, and when he realized, it was almost 2 a.m. and his parents hadn't gotten home from a party. However, something caught his attention, because on TV it was announced that the following program was The Amazing World of Gumball. Louis smiled, because that was his younger brother's favorite show, and they used to watch it together. On the screen, the title sequence appeared, but something wasn't right. The show's logo was not as Louis remembered. The colors were a bit more dull than usual, and the show's theme song had changed. Then, the name of the episode flashed on the center of the screen, The Grieving. Louis was puzzled, since he wasn't aware that a show like that one would have an episode with such a sad title. Still, he thought it was a special episode, and that it was just a weird title for it. The episode started with Gumball standing in a corner of a classroom, with little lighting around him. He was alone in the room. The windows showed that it was already late, and he looked sad, almost miserable. A few moments passed in which you could only see Gumball in the classroom, but nothing else happened. Then, the scene changed to Gumball's house. Same as before, everything was quiet, until Richard, Gumball's father, came in. He wasn't wearing his usual clothes. He was dressed in a black suit and an extremely sad face. Suddenly, Richard fell on the couch and started crying desperately. The main door opened and Gumball's mother, Nicole, went in. She was also wearing a black dress that wasn't her usual clothing, the one Louis remembered from the times he had seen the show with his brother. Nicole sat next to Richard on the couch and tried to comfort him, but he cried with more intensity and pain. Louis found it strange, as the crying sounded quite realistic, and didn't seem like the typical crying of a cartoon show. Another scene changed, and the show came back to the school, but this time, Gumball's parents were meeting Principal Brown in his office. They were all wearing their usual clothes, but the principal had a very serious expression. With a gloomy tone, he explained that their children, Anais and Darwin, had been missing since lunch, and that they had not been seen for the rest of the day. Nicole put on an angry face until the principal gave them bad news. After searching for them, they had been found dead on the outskirts of the school. The cartoon showed a flashback from a couple of hours before on that same day. Upon notifying the disappearance of the kids, the principal called the police with the initial suspicion that they had escaped from school. When authorities arrived, he explained that he found the disappearance very unusual. Darwin was a good boy, and he wouldn't be capable of doing something like that. Even less so, Anais, because she was known for being an excellent student. The police got worried that such a young and defenseless girl would go missing. The police searched every corner of the school, without luck. They then decided to search the forest that was near the school. It didn't take long for the answers to appear. Near a lake, they found Anais' head inside a small box. Blood covered all the box and its interior, as well as the head. On top of the object, there was a note written with blood that revealed where the rest of her body was, as well as Darwin's mutilated corpse. The body was hidden in the forest, and it didn't look good at all. Every small detail appeared on screen, and Louis got very uncomfortable with the sight. Darwin's face was extremely pale, his eye sockets empty and bloody. Someone had ripped them out. The rest of Anais' body was next to Darwin's, with a deep wound on her stomach, and her intestines spread in the surrounding trees. What made the scene even more uncomfortable was that the music gave it a sinister tone. After the terrifying scene on the forest, the show went back to the principal's office. Nicole asked him if Gumball was okay. The principal's expression showed confusion and surprise. He told Nicole that he thought Gumball was sick at home, since he didn't show up to school that day. the boy's mother let out an alarming scream, while Richard explained to the principal that Gumball had in fact gotten on the school bus that morning and that he had noticed he had an odd behavior. Upon hearing Richard's words, Principal Brown ordered the police to search for Gumball in the school building and in the forest where his siblings had been found. Lewis felt completely uneasy and didn't want to discover where Gumball was, nor if he was responsible for Darwin and Anais' death. Lewis jumped out of bed and went to turn the TV off and put an end to his torture. But when he pressed the off button, the TV didn't respond. As much as he would press the button on the TV, it wouldn't turn off. He also tried to do it from the remote, but with the same result. He was left with no choice but to watch the episode in the hopes that it would end soon. He took this time to call one of his friends, Mike, and tell him what was going on. When he heard the story, Mike immediately went over to his TV and turned it on. He switched to the channel Lewis had told him, but on his screen there was no Gumball, but rather a rerun of a reality show. Lewis didn't understand. Why couldn't Mike watch this Gumball episode? Pissed off, Mike ended the call thinking it was just Lewis making a joke, and Lewis was left no choice but to finish the episode and end with his suffering. He searched on his phone if anywhere online there was proof of the existence of this episode and its broadcast, but all the databases just showed episodes from the original show. To the internet, the grieving wasn't a part of Gumball's universe. Lewis looked back at the screen just in time to see the police announcing that they had finally found Gumball. He was alone inside a classroom. However, the tone of the police officer giving the announcement wasn't normal. It almost sounded as if he was scared of doing the announcement. The scene changed to the classroom where Gumball was, and Lewis had to make an effort not to cry or scream. Gumball's body was in the middle of the room, over a puddle of blood. Beside the body was a knife covered in blood. The episode's credits rolled through a black screen that had no music. Something in the text caught Lewis's attention, because the copyright disclaimer credited that the episode had been produced in 2001. Only thing is that the cartoon had launched in 2011. Suddenly, the screen showed several images that Lewis found shocking. First, the image of a person dressed to play Doctor appeared, a character Lewis hated, and the image had a red light around it. On the following image, a cat walking down the street could be seen, and everything was going well, until, in a graphic and detailed manner, a car appeared and squished the animal. This video played several times, making Lewis cover his eyes. But it was too late, because the image was already stuck to his mind. But nothing prepared him for the last image, which was another video in which his younger brother appeared completely frightened. Then, a gun appeared pointing at the little boy, and when he heard the gunshot, Lewis fainted. When he woke up, the TV was turned off, and the door to his room was locked. He did what he thought was most reasonable, and called the police to tell them what he had watched and that someone had locked all of the doors. However, when the police arrived, they weren't able to help him since there wasn't any proof or evidence in the house to prove what had happened the night before. And on his phone, his search history had also been erased, so Lewis wasn't able to show that anything had happened. Suddenly, he remembered that he had recorded a part of the episode on his phone. He showed the clip to one of the officers, and they all reacted in surprise. There was a lot of noise outside all of a sudden, and Lewis looked out the window. The front of his house was packed with police cars and patrol squads, and his parents' car was still gone. One of the officers went into the house and told Lewis that his little brother had gone missing, with his parents being the main suspects. Lewis went up to his brother's room and confirmed he wasn't there. Lewis started to cry because of everything that was going on. His brother's disappearance reminded him of the images he had seen last night after the episode had finished. The clip of his brother being held at gunpoint was stuck in his mind, and the fact that his parents hadn't gotten home made him uncomfortable. Given the situation, the police decided that Lewis should spend a couple of days at his grandparents' house while they investigated his brother's case and the episode broadcasted. During the first days, Lewis wasn't able to sleep. He would wake up from nightmares about the episode or about his brother and parents. One morning, his grandmother came into the room he was staying at and gave him an envelope with his name on it. Inside was an anonymous letter covered in blood that read, "We know you watched the episode the other night, as well as the images afterwards. We're very sorry about your parents and your little brother, but now that you're with your grandparents, we think you should watch the next Gumball Lost episode. Are you up for it?" Did you know the story of the lost episode of The Amazing World of Gumball? If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video!